Hello, hello. We are back and it is day 7 of my 10-day vlog challenge. Can't believe we've made it this far, but I'm super excited. Hope you guys are enjoying it. I certainly am. Today we are going to be looking at the subreddit for mindfulness. As we've talked about, I am into meditation and mindfulness. I've been meditating for 5 years. It has completely transformed my life, and now I feel like I'm in a really great place of balance and understanding, self-compassion. So I wanted to take a look and find a couple different things that I thought were funny, most that are really helpful and kind of advice-based. I just wanted to also preface this by saying that I am not a professional. So if you need advice, serious advice or help in this field, please go to the appropriate outlets, because as much as I have experienced and as much as I've been through, I am not an expert. So let's start out with this image. I think all of us that have meditated have experienced this at some point, but it does get easier. You just have to be patient, and if you have an itch, just scratch that itch and move on, close your eyes again, restart, and just try not to think about having an itch, and then maybe that itch will go away. All right, so let's take a look into the next image. So I love this image. I'm not sure if this is a real brain scan or not, but it just does show, it's a visualization of meditation and just how much it can actually calm the mind. And I personally like visualizations to support the things that I'm trying to understand. It just makes it kind of all make a little bit more sense to me. So hopefully this helps you kind of see and understand just how important it is to calm the brain and get to that kind of blue, cool space as opposed to that kind of red, intense, fearful space. I think that this just can represent that pretty well. So this little guide right here, I thought it was pretty interesting, and it was a good visual representation of kind of the process of mindfulness, how it can be valuable. So I'm going to read through this, and we'll start at the top left here. It says, we might sometimes slip up. It's hard to be in the now all the time, but remember, 1, be patient with yourself. 2, be kind to yourself. 3, know it takes time. 4, practice, practice, and practice. So now going to the top of the circle here at being in the now, then you move along to distracted, ruminate, bad thoughts, anxiety, snap back to the now, slip ups, and then you get stuck in the insanity loop. This is just so real and so accurate, because that is basically what anxiety is. And I actually do have an anxiety disorder. I have generalized anxiety disorder. So my brain defaults to this. And I know that this is something that anybody with any sort of anxiety disorder can understand this, but generalized anxiety disorder is like, this is how your brain processes everything. Okay, so now let's look at the bottom here. It says a few easy ways to return back to the now. 1, focus on your 5 senses, what you see, hear, smell, feel, and taste. 2, take 10 deep breaths. 3, if it's a problem, solve it. 4, name and shame the thought and ask, is it true? Is it nice? Is it necessary? So this is really sage advice, and I recall as a young girl my dad telling me to count to 10 when I needed to relax, which is great advice for any parent to give to a kid, and just for anybody to remember when you do get lost in the throes of a panic attack or anxiety, just to stop and force yourself to get back to the breath, remember your breathing, and just relax as much as you can. When you have prolonged anxiety, if you do not do these types of things like slowing down, taking your breaths, that stress in the endocrine system will build up over time and will actually cause physical ailments. which is exactly why mindfulness is so important, because of the mind-body connection and a lot of the damage that can be done through anxiety and stress prolonged over time is irreversible. So if you can get ahead of it and remain mindful, take care of yourself, get out of this loop, calm down these reactions, you can actually live longer, live better, live healthier, and feel better overall. Okay, so we're going to look at the next image here. Aren't we all victims of each other's unconscious? As a kid, you are impressionable and develop beliefs as to how you're treated. Kids are mean. Kids are developing egos. They say and do mean things to each other that end up doing damage to the victim and regret for the bullies in the future, or a lifetime of resistance, which is my interpretation of hell. Then, the victim develops beliefs, and their beliefs create their reality. That all builds into their ego/pain body, and that creates suffering. So until we awaken, our negative emotions and defensive actions are not the doer's fault, but the ego's fault. I'm sure there is a line you can draw somewhere. I hope this all makes sense. If you need clarification, let me know. As somebody that lived primarily through my ego for the last decade or so and have really been reconciling and understanding that connecting my behavioral needs and incessant desires to fill these external desires that fell so far outside of me. And now that I look back at what I was doing during that time, and now that my ego will never die, but my ego is definitely on the back burner while my true self is able to shine again. I really resonated with this. I thought that this was really a powerful and accurate examination of the ego, how that develops, and how important it is to encourage young children to forgive themselves if they are not acting appropriately, but also to develop children in a way that they understand this about themselves, so that when they get older, they can move along healthily and productively from these kinds of issues, because you can't blame a kid or anybody that's living solely through their ego and has not figured it out yet to a certain extent in a certain age. You can't blame that person. You have to forgive and understand that their actions and the reason that they're hurting people is not because of them. It's because they are living through some facade that has come from a society that drives people to feed egos and, fulfill all of these things that don't really matter. And it takes quite a bit to get to that realization and to actually start living through your true self again when you live in a constructed world that constantly feeds otherwise. Okay, so moving along here, I wanted to include this because I thought that this was just a really nice kind of reminder to be living in the now and to center, focus, not get too lost in what happened or what's going to happen, and just really think about the moment right now, because when you thrive in the now, you can create a future that is exactly what you want. So I think that this is really cool. The next is a nice quote. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. I thought that this was a nice reminder, something to think about, and know that when you fail or when you are let down, when the world is working what seems like is against you, it's because something greater is resting beyond that thing. It really is true that if you allow things to pass with forgiveness, with understanding, and then you just wait, greatness will be coming very soon, which is really cool. So moving along here, the enlightened approach on how to become enlightened. The enlightened approach to become enlightened is to be aware of being aware. Look at your hand. You are now aware of a hand. Now be aware of being aware. Stay in that awareness, and when anything occurs, simply be aware of being aware. Do not be attached to it. Do not have a desire to stop it. Just be in that moment, aware of being aware. This will automatically shift every single thing you do and the intensity in which you do it. Gradually, everything that is meant to happen will happen, and you will be the self that is unchanging. Not only will this help you quit suffering, if you actually follow this at every moment in your life, you are enlightened. This is enlightenment. People simply do not understand what enlightenment means and how to actually achieve it. They go beating around the bush with spirituality and bullshit that just because this technique for enlightenment will make you unattached from everything you ever knew in your life. This means completely abandoning the ego, seeing it for the illusion that it is. Follow this one thing and miracles will happen. Do not let your ego rob you out of true freedom. I really love this perspective on enlightenment. It's very matter of fact and very simple, just like with everything. I think that the older I get and the more that I pay attention to mindfulness and to self-care, I realize that the things that can really truly get you to the point of enlightenment, joy, personal bliss, personal nirvana, and genuine enlightenment are really just the simplest of things. I am not one to personally buy into selling spirituality and enlightenment. I believe that enlightenment comes through personal sacrifice and journey and going through different things that ultimately lead you to living a better life, making better choices. And you often have to go through a lot of trauma and pain in order to get to that other side. And constantly looking for enlightenment is not necessarily the path towards enlightenment. Actually stopping looking for it is sometimes what can cause it, because the ego is probably the one that's searching for it, because enlightenment means you're more social cues, more clout, the desire to serve something outside of yourself, some pressure, or feeding into what you think is the right thing for you to be doing. But those are all the ego's desires still. So if you're still feeding that ego, which most of us are without even realizing that we're doing it, but you have to be truly living for your authentic self before you can really move along and accomplish the things that you want in life and find that true enlightenment that so many are seeking. I think everybody at the end of the day is looking for that genuine freedom and self-love. All right, so moving along here. The main affliction of our modern civilization is that we don't know how to handle the suffering inside of us, and we try to cover it up with all kinds of consumption. Retailers peddle a plethora of devices to help us cover our suffering inside, but unless and until we're able to face our suffering, we can't be present and available to life, and happiness will continue to elude us. I guess I did place these kind of strategically, but I love how these kind of just flow so effortlessly from one to the other. I was just talking about, not serving your ego and letting go of consumption. And I think that this is just such an amazing quote. I've actually read several of Thich Nhat Hanh's. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with pronunciation. I don't know how to say his name. I'm terribly sorry. But I've actually read like 3 or 4 of his books, and he is absolutely the best. He is a Zen Buddha master, and his evaluations on just about everything are so sound and so sage. I will put a couple of recommendations for some of his books down in the description box below. I will highly recommend them. And yeah, Alright, so this is going to be the last image of this video. Let me begin. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. While unpacking my groceries, I felt so grateful for being able to get all of the food I need and want. I felt so lucky compared to even people in my own community who, while access is bountiful, are hungry. I thought about our collective past as humans evolving with one, though maybe not a great goal in mind: make it to tomorrow. Some part of you make it to tomorrow. Some farmer back in BCE couldn't fathom a super packed market, but I hope they knew then just how valuable their efforts were/are. Someone in your own family line did their job for now, and your now is their maybe someday. So what are you doing to thank the ones before you? What can you do to lend your support to the ones that come after you? I feel this. I feel this for all. Same for the collective human fears, but this is about gratitude. And this lovely Redditor got a silver award for posting this, which is really awesome. So I really love this and I resonated with it quite a bit. I think very much and often about my ancestors, where I come from, my bloodline. Being adopted definitely created a lot of fantasy in my mind about the possibility of where I come from. Not having ever met any blood relatives or hearing stories of my great grandfathers, or knowing who they were, and not really ever having any level of understanding, I was able to kind of go to a lot of crazy fantasy places in my mind. But I actually have gotten in touch with my birth family over the last couple of months, and my grandmother was also adopted, and she decided to start researching our family's DNA and where she comes from. And she actually traced us all the way back to a saint. Like, we are direct descendants of a British saint. And I will put her name in this video. I don't want to mispronounce it, but she's like a huge saintly figure. I think the Saint Patrick, is another one of my relatives in my bloodline. So I have this really rich ancestral history of spiritual, kind of grounded, very powerful, compassionate people. And having that confirmed and really understanding that about myself, that's what I come from, has really confirmed what I'm doing right now in sharing mindfulness, understanding meditation and peace and spirituality, because that really is who I am. And it's really important, I think, for all of us to think about where we come from and to think about what we can create, and understanding our connection to all of that and how important kind of living those legacies are. And that goes both positively and negatively. In my experience, in my story, I didn't really have a very firm understanding in my life of who I was and where I came from, and learning about that has actually empowered me as an adult. But in the inverse, if you come from a family or something that doesn't make you proud, or that you don't care for, that's definitely something that you can change. You can be that person in your bloodline that creates a better future. You can empower yourself to be different and to, create a different type of legacy. So I think remembering our ancestors is like a really important part of spirituality and of mindfulness. But yeah, that is it for this video. I really enjoyed talking about this. This is definitely really helpful for me and my personal growth, and I hope that it's something that you guys understand and are interested in as well. So if you want me to create another video like this, please please comment, please subscribe, please give me a big old thumbs up on this video so that I know that it's something that you guys enjoy. And I will definitely dive back into the subreddit for mindfulness.